From ancient times, the gods created monsters called Ars to ravage the world. Humanity had to struggle desperately against these creatures, but their primitive weapons could barely inflict any harm. However, whenever a violent force emerged to threaten the world, individuals with the power to defeat it would also appear. And this man was one of them. He leaped straight from above and ordered his comrade to switch to combat mode. The girl up there suddenly transformed into a form resembling a goddess, then assisted the man in his descent, freezing the entire surrounding area. The monster hurled rocks at him, but with just a swing of his sword, he generated a freezing force that turned the stones and the monster itself into ice. It struggled to break free, and as it surged forward to attack, the man immediately jumped up and delivered a slash to its head. After this, the story's main plot officially began. At a grand fortress, a girl was being held captive. Taking advantage of the guards' inattentiveness, she broke open the prison door and escaped. The entire fortress quickly mobilized to recapture her, as she was one of their test subjects. With nowhere left to run, she was forced to leap straight into the sea. She then swam to a ship and met the main protagonist, Gyro, the owner of the vessel, who spent his days drinking. The girl asked for his permission before dashing straight into town. Soon after, the guards arrived and asked Gyro if he had seen a girl dressed in black pass through. He pointed towards the town, prompting them to report back to their commander. Meanwhile, the girl was running through the town when she accidentally bumped into an elderly woman, ruining her flowers. The girl pulled out a heap of gold to compensate her, but the woman only took a single coin. Seeing that the girl seemed hungry, the woman introduced herself as Kumi and asked for her name. The girl hesitated, so Kumi took her home. The guards passed by later, but by then it was too late, as Kumi had already taken the girl away. The soldiers then returned to report to their commander, Mizami, that the test subject had escaped once again. Mizami ordered them to use any means necessary to bring her back, even the most violent methods. He then took a blue-colored drug to stay awake for his work, but it seemed that aside from sleep deprivation, he also had mental issues. Meanwhile, Kumi gave the girl a set of clothes to wear. After thanking her, the girl left. The next morning, Gyro arrived in town. As he passed by a young street vendor, she recognized him as someone who seemed to have been a monster hunter. However, he asked if there was any way to earn money in this place. The girl directed him to the town's monster hunt scheduled for the afternoon, where rewards were distributed based on the number of participants, though if someone died, the hunting guild would not take responsibility. She noticed that Gyro seemed to have lost the spirit of a hunter. After that, she continued setting up her stall to sell goods. At the same time, the pink-haired girl happened to pass by. The street vendor took the opportunity to introduce her wares. She explained that this city thrived on hunting monsters and other large creatures. Despite the harm these creatures caused to the town and its people, their meat and fat were highly valuable, leading to the emergence of the monster hunting profession. The pink-haired girl became interested in a cat-shaped ring, and the vendor explained that it was an engagement ring, rumored to be a guiding artifact capable of saving the world from monsters. However, to use it, one had to form a contract with someone else. Upon completing the contract, the wearer would have their life force drained, essentially making it a cursed ring. The pink-haired girl accidentally put the ring on, leaving the vendor with no choice but to insist that she buy it. Meanwhile, Gyro arrived at the hunting event. Because he used an unimpressive alias, people assumed he was an ordinary man incapable of anything noteworthy. The story then shifted to the imperial capital, where the female warrior Tsurugi was meeting with the council and the king. She requested to divide the army to protect the people from monsters, but the council refused, insisting that they concentrate all military forces around the imperial center to defend only that area. Returning to the hunter's expedition, the monster this time appeared to be a colossal boar with two drill-like tusks that could extend to bore through rock and consume the minerals inside. The hunters began luring the creature toward the city walls. The entire town was promptly notified that the monster was approaching. The 3 hunters tasked with leading it there completed their mission, but one of them was sent flying into the wall by the monster's charge. From atop the wall, Gyro had to leap down. He hurled a spear to block the boar's drills before rushing in to save the injured hunter. Once he had successfully rescued the man, the hunters swiftly launched explosive arrows to take down the monster. The beast was ultimately defeated, and Mizami unexpectedly took notice of Gyro's actions. That night, the town held a festival to celebrate the successful hunt. The hunter Gyro had saved spoke up to honor him and gave him the nickname Lightning. Later that night, Mizami suddenly came to see Gyro. Gyro asked what the Imperial commander wanted from him, to which Mizami cryptically hinted that Gyro was once a warrior possessing the power to fight against monsters. However, Gyro dismissed this as mistaken identity and walked away. Meanwhile, the pink-haired girl and the young street vendor were on their way home. The street vendor decided to let the pink-haired girl stay at her place for a while. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew away the pink-haired girl's hat, revealing her face to the soldiers, who immediately began pursuing her. She fled to the harbor but was unexpectedly struck by an arrow. At the same time, the town guards discovered a monster entering the city. The soldiers then noticed a dark aura emanating from the pink-haired girl, which caused 2 archers to be reduced to ashes. At that very moment, the sword Gyro had stored in his home began moving on its own. Curious, he went outside and saw the pink-haired girl glowing, which reminded him of a former comrade. He realized that what was happening was the activation of a curse. While the monster was rampaging through the town, the soldiers prioritized capturing the girl rather than dealing with the immediate threat. Gyro rushed in, slicing through the incoming arrows before grabbing the girl and diving into the sea. As they submerged, he reached out to summon his weapon and kissed her forehead. He asked for her identity, to which she responded that she was Experiment No. 22. However, she then decided to take the name Kyumi from the elderly woman who had helped her. Gyro had many questions for her, but for now, stopping the monster was the priority. Gyro and Kyumi entered combat mode and merged their powers. At this moment, the story delved deeper into the past, revealing that the gods had created the land, but humanity had stolen it from them. As a result, the gods summoned monstrous beasts to punish mankind, and in response, humans called upon the power of the gods to fight back. Gyro then emerged from the water, his hair glowing, and his sword transformed into a spear. Kyumi asked what she should do during the fight, as this was her first experience with such a battle. Gyro simply told her to remain silent. He then charged forward, landing a strike that knocked the monster down. The two continued their fierce battle, but Gyro quickly realized that the monster's body was too tough to pierce through. He was soon caught by the creature, but before it could finish him off, something unexpectedly caught its attention, prompting it to throw him aside. Kyumi asked if he was all right, and Gyro brushed it off, joking that he had simply overindulged in alcohol that night. Regaining his stance, Gyro launched himself at the monster and severed one of its arms. However, the beast showed no signs of stopping, leading Kyumi to speculate that its weak point might be the eye in the center of its head. Gyro decided to go along with her intuition. He climbed onto the monster's arm, then lunged forward, driving his spear into its eye. He then enlarged the weapon, piercing all the way through the creature's body. The monster ceased all movement and collapsed. Gyro, having exhausted his energy, also fell unconscious alongside it. Kyumi was unsure what had happened to Gyro when the young street vendor appeared. She introduced herself as Mia and said she would take Gyro to a place where they treated special patients like him. The next morning, Mizami arrived at the scene. After analyzing the ashes left behind, he deduced that Kyumi had successfully released a type of aura capable of turning humans into dust upon contact. When monsters inhale this aura, they become agitated and drawn toward it. Mizami was soon informed that a warrior had taken Kyumi and even slain the monster rampaging through the town. Knowing that the warrior must be injured after the battle, he ordered the soldiers to search every corner of the town. Meanwhile, the townspeople were busy repairing the city walls. While Kyumi and Mia casually went to the market for groceries, Kyumi became excited upon seeing a type of pastry and rushed to buy it, but Mia urged her to avoid standing out since she was still a wanted fugitive. Mia also wanted to hurry back because Gyro was likely about to wake up. Aside from rebuilding the walls, the townspeople also began the ritual to process the monster's corpse. Meanwhile, Gyro was recalling memories from 5 years ago when he, his partner, and 2 comrades fought against countless monsters. Due to the same curse Kyumi had used the previous night, his partner had lost her life. His comrades had urged him to abandon her and escape, but he had refused. Gyro suddenly woke up, only to hear Mya talking about how his kiss on Kyumi's forehead was essentially a marriage proposal. He immediately bolted outside, exclaiming that he wasn't a lolicon, and that there was no marriage happening. He insisted that what he had performed was a contract ritual. He explained that Kyumi was known as a bearer of the god's power, a tremendous force that, if left unchecked, would release an aura that both attracted monsters and annihilated everything around it. That was precisely why warriors like him existed to serve as vessels to suppress the power of the gods. Gyro then asked why the soldiers were after Kyumi, but she was unable to answer. Not wanting to be involved with the warriors' cause any longer, he told her to find another warrior and left, advising her not to stay in the town for too long. However, Mia had a plan. By nightfall, she was confident Gyro would return to retrieve the weapon he had left behind. Moreover, finding another warrior in the world was no easy feat, so they had to make him accompany them. Kyumi also had a growing fondness for Gyro, noting that he had a pleasant and warm scent. That evening, Mia took Kyumi to a tavern for a meal. Unexpectedly, Kyumi encountered the elderly woman who had given her the name Kyumi. However, soldiers soon arrived after receiving reports that their experiment subject was present. Some patrons in the tavern voiced their displeasure at the soldiers causing trouble. Kyumi tried to hide under a table, but was quickly discovered. The elderly woman stepped in to protect her, but Kyumi didn't want to cause her any trouble and ran outside. Suddenly, her aura flared up, reducing a soldier she touched to ashes. Mia had to knock her unconscious before she could cause further destruction. Mia and Kyumi ultimately allowed themselves to be captured. Mizami soon received word that Kyumi had been taken back and that only one soldier had died. To avoid unnecessary unrest, Mizami ordered the soldier's death to be covered up. Meanwhile, Gyro was tidying up his ship when he noticed that his weapon had vanished. In their prison cell, Mia and Kyumi saw the weapon levitating and realized that Gyro had begun searching for it. Unaware of where his weapon was, Gyro first went to Maya's house, but neither she nor Kyumi was there. Searching through the town, he unexpectedly encountered the elderly woman, who informed him that the 2 girls had been taken by the soldiers. She also handed him some fruits that could restore a warrior's strength. Gyro accepted them and swiftly left. That night, Gyro lurked around the military ship and confirmed that both girls were being held there. He swiftly interrogated a guard, knocked him out, and proceeded to search for them. He quickly found and freed them. After retrieving his weapon, Gyro began to leave, making the 2 girls think he was abandoning them. However, he suddenly ordered them to follow him. The soldiers quickly noticed their escape and surrounded them. Mizami was also caught off guard by how quickly Gyro had returned to his true form. Gyro then told the 2 girls to grab onto his weapon before leaping straight into the sea. The spear soared through the air, pulling all 3 of them along with it. The 3 of them returned to Gyro's ship. He asked Mia to start and steer the ship while he and Kyumi worked together to shake off the pursuing soldiers. Then, combining their strength, Gyro and Kyumi launched a direct assault on the military ship, piercing through its hull and sinking it. With no other choice left, Gyro was now forced to accompany Mia and Kyumi, as the 3 of them had officially become fugitives wanted by the military. After repairing the ship, Gyro wanted to set off for the next town as soon as possible. The following morning, the military ship was repaired, and Mazami met with 2 captains, instructing them to return with him to resume research. For now, the pursuit of Kyumi was temporarily halted. Meanwhile, Jiro's group continued their journey to the next town. Jiro asked Mia if she was taking a hidden path, and she confirmed that she was following his instructions using the main roads would guarantee their capture. This was also Kyumi's first time seeing rain. Suddenly, Mia stopped the ship, prompting Jiro to step out and investigate. They soon came across a massive ravine. Mia explained that due to the frequent rainfall in this region, the valleys had become extremely developed. However, the excessive accumulation of rainwater had led to the formation of this ravine to allow the water to flow down below. Since their ship couldn't cross the ravine, they had no choice but to wait a few days for the rain to stop and for the ravine to naturally close. However, Jiro reminded them that they didn't have enough provisions to wait for several days. Mya, unfazed, suddenly announced that she had a plan. She steered the ship toward a beastman village. Jiro was concerned about whether they would be welcomed, but Mia reassured him. She then approached a fearsome-looking man and let out a cat-like sound. From behind the man, another person appeared, someone who resembled Mya but had a dog perched on their head. The 2 weren't acquainted, but Mia at least managed to obtain permission for the group to stay for a while. The village children soon ran out to play with Kyumi and Jiro, but Jiro sternly scolded them, prompting Kyumi to take them elsewhere. While playing with the children, Kyumi was invited to join in a jump rope game. Though she was a bit clumsy at first and fell, she noticed that one girl had distanced herself from the others. Meanwhile, the 2 military captains, one fat and one thin, spotted a whale-like monster in the sea. From what they knew, sea monsters usually didn't attack humans like the ones on land did. This left them wondering what the key difference between the 2 types was. They also discussed how Mazami seemed uninterested in pursuing Kyumi any further. The fat captain remarked that if he were in Mazami's position, he wouldn't want to face Jiro either. However, whether Mazami had truly given up on Kyumi remained uncertain. Back in the village, Jiro asked Mya about the girl with the dog on her head, but Mia simply said it was a secret. Kyumi soon returned for dinner with the group. After eating, Jiro asked if he was allowed to hunt in the area, but before anyone could answer, a hunter named Deagle appeared and warned him against it. Deagle explained that the beasts in this region were far more dangerous than those elsewhere. Just then, a young man arrived, requesting to become Deagle's apprentice. Deagle refused, so the young man instead asked to be taught swordsmanship. Deagle promised to teach him after returning from his mission and then left. Kyumi then asked Jiro if Deagle was strong, and Jiro absent-mindedly responded that he was very strong. Hearing that, Kyumi immediately ran off, leaving Mia visibly irritated with Jiro. While wandering, Kyumi happened to encounter the same girl who had distanced herself earlier. The girl was trying to catch fireflies on a tree but accidentally fell. Unexpectedly, the young man who had followed Deagle arrived just in time to catch her. Seeing that her hands were scraped, Kyumi bandaged her wounds. The girl thanked her before quickly running off. The young man introduced himself as Marin, while the girl was named Dilly. Though they lived together, they weren't actually siblings. Marin explained that in the Beastman tribe, blood relations weren't particularly important, simply living together made them family. His goal was to become a warrior of the gods to protect the village from monsters, and he had chosen Deagle as his ideal role model due to his strength. Meanwhile, Mia asked Jiro if he truly didn't intend to fight again, as the fact that monsters had been growing stronger recently was undeniable. However, Jiro had no desire to hunt, especially in this village, fearing that the villagers would make a fuss over having a warrior of the gods in their midst. Mia reluctantly agreed, as it seemed Deagle had already been probing Jiro's strength earlier. At that moment, Deagle and his hunting party were engaged in battle with several elephant-like monsters. Deagle blocked the lead monster's path before ramming it to the ground, allowing the hunters to fire their arrows. However, just then, they encountered another elephant-like creature, this one with glowing red eyes. Back in the village, Marin was searching for Dilly but couldn't find her anywhere. Fearing that she had wandered out of the village to play, he hurriedly set off to find her. Suddenly, word of the red-eyed monster reached the village. Kyumi rushed to inform Gyro, who immediately went to assess the situation, only to find Deagle returning wounded with the hunting party. Kyumi then informed the village chief that Dilly was missing. No one in the village knew where she had gone, but just then, Dilly suddenly appeared, carrying Marin's sword. She had brought the sword to give to Kyumi, having noticed that Kyumi seemed troubled by something. However, Kyumi refused the sword, and the village chief advised Dilly to return it to Marin. The chief also revealed that Dilly was a rare child within the village. She possessed the ability to read others' minds. It was only then that Deagle realized Marin was nowhere to be seen. Kyumi mentioned that Marin had gone into the forest to look for Dilly, prompting the village to mobilize in search of him. However, by this time, Marin was already being chased by the red-eyed elephant monster and soon realized he had forgotten to bring his sword. With no other choice, Gyro was forced to take action. He ordered Mia to prepare the ship for a quick escape, ensuring they would only focus on rescuing Marin rather than engaging the red-eyed monster in battle. Marin tripped and fell right in front of the red-eyed elephant, forcing Gyro to rush in to save him. He told Marin to retreat, but the monster suddenly grew tentacle-like appendages and attacked Gyro. Not wanting to waste any more time, Gyro reluctantly fused with Kyumi to fight. He swiftly dodged the tentacle attacks, then lunged forward, stabbing his spear into the monster's eye before activating an expansion ability to finish it off. However, Marin had witnessed Gyro's transformation as a warrior of the gods. Gyro ordered him to return to the village and forbade him from speaking a word about what he had seen. After Gyro left, Deagle and the villagers arrived. Though they didn't know who had slain the red-eyed monster, Deagle had an idea. He told Marin to go and express his gratitude, which Marin quickly did. At that moment, Gyro's group realized that the ravine had yet to close. Marin caught up to them and insisted on repaying Gyro for saving his life, swearing to protect his secret at all costs. The group then returned to the village, and this time, Gyro no longer objected when the village children clung to him. He didn't scold them anymore. Meanwhile, Tsurugi, a female warrior of the Empire, continuously received reports of red-eyed monsters appearing one after another, leaving her uncertain about what was happening. Several days later, Gyro's group was still staying in the Beastman village. Gyro spent his time gambling with the villagers, while Kyumi ate endlessly. Much to Maya's frustration, both of them were freeloading, while she was the one paying for everything. Kyumi decided she needed to do something to repay Mia. However, before she could act, Gyro came running over and declared that this time he would treat both girls to a meal. Mia asked where he got the money, and Gyro smugly revealed his treasured asset. He had been cheating at gambling for the past few days. He argued that since no one got hurt, it was fine. Just then, a rabbit beastwoman unexpectedly entered the restaurant. The other villagers seemed to harbor some hostility toward her, but Kyumi approached her like a staff member, offering her a towel to dry her hair and curiously asking about the contents of her suitcase. The girl revealed that her suitcase contained medicinal herbs and introduced herself as Rona, a traveling doctor who treated people wherever she went. She then asked Kyumi if she was here alone, only to notice Gyro and Mia sitting nearby. Approaching them, Rona invited Gyro to a gambling match, and he agreed to play. Before long, however, Rona had completely emptied Gyro's pockets. Yet, with the mindset of a true gambler, Gyro was determined to win back his losses. He placed his final coin on the table, but Rona refused to play with someone who had no money left. Instead, she demanded that Gyro wager Kyumi if he lost. He would have to hand Kyumi over to her. Gyro, however, summoned his weapon and put that up as a bet instead. This unexpected turn of events quickly led to a misunderstanding. Rona had assumed that Gyro was a human trafficker and was trying to rescue Kyumi from him. Gyro realized that, as usual, the problem stemmed from Kyumi. But Mia pointed out that the real issue was Gyro's face. It made him look exactly like a criminal. Gyro then demanded his weapon back from Rona, but she never said she would return it. Since he had lost the bet, she believed he had to accept the consequences. She also advised that someone as reckless as him should quit being a hunter. At that moment, someone rushed in to report that the rain was growing heavier, and the village could soon be flooded. The village chief had a plan to prevent disaster, but it required Gyro's help. There was a safe shelter ahead, and the chief wanted Gyro to assist in transporting supplies there. Mia agreed immediately, but Gyro questioned why they weren't trying to block the flood with sandbags first, given that there was still one more day before the waters would completely submerge the village. The chief, however, considered that too risky. He prioritized the villagers' safety. Seeing no other option, Gyro agreed to help. Using his ship, Gyro hauled the villagers' belongings to the shelter, while Marin and Deagle stayed behind to ensure no one was left behind. However, they soon spotted a massive wave approaching. This wave, however, was unnatural. It had been created by a giant fish-like monster. The creature struck Deagle, shattering his sword and sending him flying before diving back into the muddy waters. Deagle was brought to Rona for first aid, while Gyro questioned Marin about the monster's appearance. Marin explained that it looked like a fish and hid in the mud. Since it wasn't a red-eyed type, Gyro decided to think of a different strategy to deal with it. Rona then tossed Gyro's weapon back to him, clarifying that it was only a loan, not a return. Deagle instructed Marin to accompany Gyro. As Marin had already seen the creature and had the ability to see in the dark, he might be able to assist Gyro in some way. Gyro reluctantly allowed Marin to join him, under the condition that he followed orders. Mia joined as well, which made Kumi want to go too. However, Rona needed Kumi to stay and help, so Gyro reassured her that since this wasn't a red-eyed monster, he could handle it on his own. The three then set off on the ship, tracking the floodwaters to locate the creature. They spotted a whirlpool, suspecting the monster was beneath it. Gyro attached a chain to his weapon and threw it into the vortex. As the entire chain unraveled, the ship was suddenly pulled, meaning the fish had taken the bait. Meanwhile, Deagle struck up a conversation with Kumi about her background. She revealed that she was an orphan until she met Gyro. Deagle noted that she was similar to Marin. However, unlike Kumi, Marin was too kind to be a proper hunter. Deagle believed Marin needed to experience more of the world before becoming a warrior, and that Gyro was a better teacher for him than Deagle himself. Back at the whirlpool, Gyro dragged the fish monster along, intending not to kill it, but to release it back into the river. Since it was a water-based creature and didn't naturally attack humans, he believed it had only been agitated by the flood. However, just then, the monster unexpectedly awakened into its red-eyed state and snapped the chain, bringing the entire ship to a halt. Gyro suddenly found himself struggling against the now much stronger creature. Meanwhile, back in the village, Rona asked Kumi if she knew about the warriors of the gods and those who bore the power of the gods. Kumi replied that she had heard about them from Gyro. Rona then elaborated further, explaining that the warriors of the gods existed to protect those who carried divine power. However, throughout her journey treating patients on the battlefield, she had only ever seen warriors trying to exploit those who possessed godly power. Kumi disagreed with Rona's view of Gyro, believing he wasn't the kind of person Rona described. Although Rona realized Kumi had just inadvertently revealed something, she had already suspected the truth. Gyro was a warrior of the gods. Deagle had likely figured it out as well. Rona intended to give Kumi some advice, but suddenly Deagle cried out in pain, pretending to have been poisoned by the fish monster. He urgently asked Kumi to find Mia and get an antidote. Believing him, Kumi immediately ran off. In reality, Deagle had faked the situation to ease Kumi's worries about Gyro. At the same time, he assured Rona that Gyro was a trustworthy person, so she shouldn't be too wary of him. Meanwhile, Gyro was completely helpless against the monster. Its body had visibly hardened, making it impossible for him to pierce through without Kumi's power. The fish then extended tentacle-like appendages to absorb water, causing its body to grow larger. It began firing high-pressure water bullets at Gyro, forcing him to defend himself rather than attack. Kumi soon arrived, looking for medicine for Deagle, but Mia had no antidote. Since Kumi was already here, Gyro called her over to assist in the fight. He had observed that he could use the rock formation on the fish's head to his advantage. Rushing in, he struck the rock, causing it to break off and fall, pinning the fish beneath it. With the monster immobilized, Gyro swiftly finished it off with a single strike to the eye, just as he always did. The next day, the entire village gathered to express their gratitude to Gyro's group. Rona then decided to travel with Gyro, making him her bodyguard to pay off his debt. Just before departure, Gyro was puzzled by Marin's presence. Marin revealed that Deagle had entrusted him to Gyro for training, meaning he would now be part of the group as well. Gyro then took back his spearhead from Rona, and she realized he had never intended to give it to her in the first place. As a result, she decided to count it as a debt and would make him work to pay it off over time. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to the two squad captains. Both had been reassigned as security personnel at a research facility. During a casual conversation, the thin captain lamented that work had been so hectic lately that he hadn't been able to visit his newlywed wife. The burly captain, on the other hand, said his salary hadn't changed, so his wife had no complaints. The thin captain, dissatisfied with his own earnings, considered switching careers. The burly captain then informed him about joining Mazami's personal guard. However, the position was only appealing for the first year. Afterward, members were forced to take drugs until they lost their sanity, and within another 6 months, they were turned into machines once they outlived their usefulness. Machines was just a euphemism for people who had lost all emotions and memories. The thin captain began to wonder what exactly the Empire was researching at this facility, but the burly captain admitted that their ranks weren't high enough to access such information. Returning to Gyro's group, Rona had now learned why they were being pursued by the Empire. She also noticed that Gyro had yet to fully master controlling Kumi's power, leading her to believe he was incompetent. Although Gyro was in the cockpit, he still heard her remark and subtly called her out on it. Rona then noticed Kumi's ring and recognized it as a creation of the forest dwellers, a long-lived race that resided in the Crystal Forest. Most of their jewelry was inherited from previous generations. Mia suggested that they visit the forest dwellers to learn more about the ring's purpose. However, reaching their settlement from here would take nearly half a month. The group turned to Gyro, their de facto leader, to see if he was willing to go. Since he had no particular plans, he decided to continue his babysitting duties and travel with them. Unexpectedly, Gyro stopped the ship when he noticed someone blocking their path. Stepping outside, Marin was shocked to recognize the man. It was Zen, a warrior who frequently visited the village and had trained him. The group introduced themselves to Zen, who inquired about their destination. Upon learning that their route would pass through the mountain tribe's territory, he warned them that the tribe was not particularly welcoming to outsiders. However, since Zen had connections with them, he offered to write a letter of introduction, which would allow the group to pass through safely. Zen listened to Marin's account and learned about the events that had transpired in the village, understanding why Marin had chosen to follow Gyro's group. However, Gyro and the others only now realized that part of Marin's reason for joining them was to repay Gyro for saving the village. Having finished writing the letter, Zen handed it over to the group and reminded Marin to learn well from Gyro. Back on the ship, Gyro informed Mia and the group that he would be in trouble if the mountain tribes saw his face. So, once they arrived, he planned to stay inside the ship. This was due to an unresolved conflict between him and the tribe, but he told the others not to worry about it. Upon reaching the mountain tribe's village, Rona and Mia stepped out to greet the locals. There, they encountered another person who looked like Mia but was wearing a lion-shaped hat. After a brief conversation, Mia presented Zen's letter to the tribe's chief. Upon reading it and seeing Gyro's name, the entire tribe began loudly calling for Gyro to come out. Gyro had no idea why Zen had gone out of his way to cause unnecessary trouble. Realizing he had already been exposed, he reluctantly stepped forward and greeted the tribe chief, Baben. Thanks to Zen speaking on his behalf, Baben decided to pardon Gyro. Meanwhile, Tsurugi sought the help of a noble to convince the council to divide the military forces and dispatch them to eliminate monsters across the empire. However, like the rest of the council, the noble dismissed the idea, believing it unnecessary to send troops to aid demi-human tribes. He then subtly provoked her with well-crafted words, forcing her to leave empty-handed. On her way out, Tsurugi realized that the noble must have made some prior preparations. He was not the type to provoke her unless he had already planned a countermeasure. Now, her only hope rested on Zen. Back in the mountain tribe, Gyro was forced to participate in a wrestling match. His first opponent was a burly warrior who quickly pushed Gyro to the edge of the ring. However, Gyro managed to hold his ground and then threw his opponent out of the ring instead. The match didn't end there. Another challenger stepped in right away. As Gyro fought, Kyumi observed his strength firsthand. Meanwhile, she became curious about Baben's name. Rona explained that the mountain tribe had a tradition of giving their children unimpressive names, believing that if a child had a name too grand, the god of death would take an interest and claim them early. Marin also expressed his desire to grow up quickly so he could discard his own childish nickname. Gyro soon defeated his second opponent, but more challengers eagerly stepped forward. Eventually, he found himself surrounded, but Baben intervened and ordered everyone to back off, declaring that he himself would be Gyro's opponent. Baben wasted no time and opened the fight with a devastating strike. Gyro continuously dodged before finally landing a punch on Baben, but it barely did any damage. Baben then grabbed Gyro's arm, lifted him into the air, and slammed him forcefully onto the ground. Gyro lay motionless after the impact, making Baben the victor. Acknowledging Gyro's strength, Baben called for everyone to cheer for him. That night, Baben hosted a feast for Gyro's group. During the meal, Gyro asked Baben if he still bore a grudge against him for having killed many members of the mountain tribe in the past. However, Baben explained that his people were warriors by nature. They were always prepared to kill or be killed. As a result, their tribe did not hold on to hatred. The only thing that mattered to them was strength, and Gyro had proven himself worthy of respect. Baben then mentioned that Gyro was quite popular among the mountain tribe's women. Gyro assumed that the two girls in his group were still children, but Baben corrected him, stating that mountain tribe women were naturally small, which was why their men had to go to great lengths to protect them. He even offered to arrange a marriage for Gyro if he was interested, unless Gyro already had someone he was committed to. Looking over Gyro's group, Baben playfully asked each member, including Marin. In Baben's eyes, love was love, regardless of gender. He then advised Gyro that if he ever wanted to, he could leave a child behind for the mountain tribe. Baben promised to take good care of the child and raise them into a warrior. Suddenly, an alarm sounded. A monster was attacking. The mountain tribe immediately lured the creature into the arena. Gyro and Marin's first opponent entered the arena to face the monster, but Marin's sword broke after just one strike, so he surrendered. The mountain uncle, however, was still able to deal with the monster using his strong physical power. But the monster suddenly appeared with red eyes and knocked the uncle out of the arena, so Gyro and Baben quickly merged to join the fight. Baben charged and attacked, but was pushed out of the arena by the monster, leaving Gyro to take over the fight. Marin told Baben to break the arena floor, and Baben struck a blow that cracked the floor, causing the monster to lose balance and flip over. Gyro quickly jumped up and stabbed it in the eye, while Baben attacked its tail to prevent it from retaliating. The monster was defeated. The next morning, the uncle was honored for his contribution in fighting the monster and was given a stronger title as a tribute. Meanwhile, two suspicious individuals were on the mountain. preparing to release 5 more monsters into the village. But Zen unexpectedly appeared and dealt with them all. The white-haired man quickly blocked Zen's strike, and the woman behind him used black energy to push Zen back. She was about to merge, but the white-haired man thought it was unnecessary and leaped into battle, locking Zen's moves. Zen quickly broke his hold and regained his weapon. He asked him if he had been sent by Mizami, but the man remained silent. He pushed Zen back and began counterattacking. However, Zen didn't reveal any weaknesses and swiftly delivered a strike that cut the man's body in half. But what Zen had struck was just an afterimage, and the real body was behind him. Zen unleashed a slash of sword energy, causing rocks to fall onto the man's head. Although the white-haired man wasn't dead, Zen had already run away. Mizami, at that moment, was meeting with the nobleman. The nobleman asked how the plan was progressing, and Mizami informed him that someone had interfered with their plan. However, the nobleman didn't want to deal with the obstruction yet, and decided to play with Tsurugi a little longer. He believed that Tsurugi only suspected his plan, so he wanted to provide more clues to make her fully believe that he was the one causing the recent monster rampages. Only after that would he officially start his plan. The nobleman also asked about the disturbance at the starting town, and Mizami believed it wasn't worth concerning himself with, as test subjects couldn't survive long outside the research facility. The nobleman reminded Mizami about clarifying the distinction between the ruling class and their subordinates, clearly indicating a warning. Mizami, understanding the implication, chose to ignore it and left to return. Meanwhile, Marin had caught Gyro training at night and decided to join him. Gyro believed he couldn't teach Marin, as he used a spear, not a sword. But when he saw Marin swinging the sword incorrectly, Gyro still decided to give him detailed instructions. The two trained until morning, at which point Babin's wife came to call them for breakfast. After a satisfying meal, Babin's wife asked the group to share some interesting stories from their journey, as they were rare guests in the village. After chatting for a while, both sides realized that the appearance of stronger monsters recently, as well as the red-eyed ones, was a noticeable issue. Not only this village but other villages had also encountered red-eyed monsters. However, Babin believed his tribe was strong and wasn't afraid of the red-eyed monsters. But when they returned to the ship, Kumi felt guilty, thinking the appearance of the red-eyed monsters was her fault. Indeed, Gyro had suspected this too, because every time Kumi emitted dark energy, the monsters would appear, and they would unexpectedly become red-eyed. However, Gyro reasoned that Kumi had only lost control once during their time at the harbor, so the repeated appearance of the red-eyed monsters was likely due to something else. Gyro then went to meet Babin and told him he wanted to investigate the red-eyed monsters. Babin directed him to a quarry on the mountain, where the view was excellent, and Gyro could observe where the red-eyed monsters were coming from. Babin then gave him a type of fuel that his wife had dug up to operate the airship. He put it into the engine for a test and told Mia to start the engine. Indeed, this fuel worked very well and helped the airship rise quite high, but its shelf life was only one night, so he needed to make the most of it. The group then set off to the mining area. Marin, who was on top of the airship, quickly spotted the mining site, but it was under attack by a monster. Gyro then tasked Marin with gathering the mountain tribe to defend the mining site, while he and Kumi would find a way to climb to the mountain top to observe. Mia gave Marin a new sword and asked him to take good care of it. Marin then rushed to fight the monster. Thanks to the new technique he had learned from Gyro, Marin was able to cut off one of the monster's legs. But when its eyes turned red, Marin had no choice but to retreat into the mine with the mountain tribe. At that moment, Babin led a group of soldiers to the site, and he would handle the monster himself. Meanwhile, Gyro and Kumi were brought up near the mountain top. Gyro sensed the presence of someone with divine power up there and suspected that these individuals were connected to the appearance of the red-eyed monsters. He then approached two people on the mountaintop and was surprised to find that the white-haired man was his former teammate, Facade. However, Facade had forgotten his own name and Gyro's. Facade allowed Gyro to leave, but Gyro refused and drew his weapon. Realizing Gyro was a warrior of the gods, Facade immediately attacked. Gyro was pushed back and had to merge with Kumi to fight. However, even without merging, Facade was still as strong as Gyro when he had merged. Both were blown to opposite corners, but now Gyro had to face Facade's partner. Kumi suddenly realized that the opponent was also someone like her. Gyro realized that both of them were copies and experimental subjects created by the research facility. However, Black Kumi believed she was different from Kumi in white. She considered herself unique and planned to use extreme measures by activating the curse to prove it. Baben had to rush in to stop her and create an opportunity for Gyro to retreat. Mia then piloted the airship to pick up Gyro, and he decided to take Kumi with him. The group had to leave, leaving Baben and the mountain tribe to handle the rest. Then, we saw the three old women performing some kind of ritual, all desperately searching for the engagement ring, the one that Kumi owned. Meanwhile, Baben and the mountain tribe had been defeated by Facade, even though Facade hadn't merged yet. Gyro, meanwhile, kept thinking about why Facade had become the person he had become. Kumi still couldn't stop being shocked after seeing her own copy and recalling the horrific things the research facility had done to her. Marin then asked Rona about the reason for the appearance of someone very similar to Kumi. Rona didn't know, but she was certain that Gyro was facing some kind of issue. The airship was suddenly struck by lightning and fell straight into the forest. Meanwhile, Zen reported to Tsurugi about encountering Facade. She knew she had only dealt with the nobleman but not with Mizami yet, so she asked her associate to arrange a meeting with the king. Meanwhile, Gyro tried to repair the airship but realized it might take until morning to find a solution because the wind was too strong. Suddenly, Gyro noticed a flower petal fly up to his face, so he quickly ran off to find something. He noticed a type of purple flower here and warned the group to be careful as a monster might appear. The next morning, Mia and Marin managed to repair the airship and got it running again. The group continued their journey. After a while, Mia announced that they had reached the territory of the Horned People. The group noticed that Gyro didn't seem very happy, so they asked him if he had caused any trouble with the Horned People, and if so, it would still be okay to admit it now. But he insisted that there was nothing. However, his actions seemed to suggest the opposite. Rona guessed that Gyro's reaction was likely related to a woman, but he dismissed this suggestion and told Mia to speed up. When they arrived, Mia spoke with another Mia wearing a chicken hat and asked for permission to stay there for a while. The tribe leader then came to meet the group and asked Gyro if he had broken the curse. To everyone's surprise, Gyro bowed and called him father. The group then followed the tribe leader to perform a ceremony. After completing the ceremony, Gyro left, and the group asked the leader about Gyro. He explained that Gyro was his son-in-law, and that his daughter, who was also Gyro's wife, had passed away 5 years ago. The reason Gyro had come to him so late was likely because of the curse. Mia had heard of the curse and explained that it was a curse for warriors like Gyro. If he wished to become a vessel for a new being with divine power, he would have to forget all memories of the previous host. The fact that Gyro hadn't forgotten his late wife indicated that he hadn't fully accepted becoming a vessel for Kumi. The tribe leader then asked Kumi to find Gyro at his daughter's grave, hoping that this might help her resolve her inner turmoil. Indeed, Gyro was at his wife's grave, recalling events from 8 years ago when he had just begun his career as a hunter. One time, he had unexpectedly been helped by Tuka, who would later become his wife, with a well-timed knife throw that created an opening for him to finish off a monster. This was how they first met, and Tuka saw helping Gyro as a way to repay him for helping her draw a beautiful picture. Tuka used her art to point out Gyro's weaknesses, so he decided to invite her to join him, to draw whenever he fought so he could discover his own weaknesses and improve. Kumi eventually arrived and asked to greet Tuka. Meanwhile, Tsurugi had gone to meet the king to report on the nobleman and Mizami's plot. This scheme was meant to turn the subhuman tribes against the empire. The king ordered the council to leave and then activated a magic circle where Tsurugi had just met him. He told her to ignore the nobleman and go find the ring. Tsurugi realized that the king was asking her to hunt down Jiro's group, but the magic circle forced her to obey without resistance. Jiro then shared with Kyumi about his time with Tuka. He had met the tribe leader early on and asked permission to take Tuka on a journey. They traveled to many places, drawing everything and encountering various monsters. Over time, Jiro was recognized by the Empire and given a fruit that granted him the strength of a warrior. However, he didn't realize that by accepting that fruit, he had become bound to the Empire and was forced to participate in missions he had no interest in. One day, Jiro was assigned a mission with Tsurugi and Facade. At that time, Tsurugi wanted to be promoted. Once she had power, she planned to stop the meaningless war and enjoy a life in the countryside. However, ironically, even though Tsurugi had achieved her goal, she was unable to do what she had promised the group. The headquarters ordered her to return, and only Facade, Jiro and his wife, and the others were left to face a nightmare. The monsters attacking them were giants that could talk. They soon knocked everyone unconscious, and Tuka had to sacrifice herself to protect Jiro and the others. She managed to take down the smaller monsters, but the giant leader appeared afterward. Somehow, Jiro survived, and now he was determined to use the life that Tuka had saved to help Kyumi. Kyumi had resolved her inner conflict and realized what she truly wanted, to save others like her, the copies. At that moment, Jiro's dog suddenly sniffed out a monster approaching. Facade and Black Kyumi had led a horde of monsters to the Horn Tribe village in an attempt to capture Jiro. Meanwhile, Mizami received a question. What would happen if Facade came into contact with Jiro and regained his memories? If that happened, Mizami would deal with Facade himself. He had also created many other copies of Black Kyumi and ordered them to be sent to designated areas. The village then stepped forward to face the horde of monsters. Jiro and Kyumi, meanwhile, had arrived to meet Facade and Black Kyumi. Black Kyumi believed she didn't need Kyumi's help, but Kyumi remained determined to save her counterpart at all costs. The story then shifts back to some time ago, when Mizami began collaborating with the nobleman to conduct experiments. He created many experimental subjects, with the common goal of creating a vessel that could unleash dark energy without being killed by it. The experiments also involved implanting monster cells into human bodies, and one such hybrid was Facade. Many other experiments were conducted, and Kyumi, or Subject 22, appeared when everything began to change. Kyumi was continuously injected with drugs and forced to repeat a command to activate her powers. However, she survived through several instances. Then, one day, Mizami realized that the key to triggering the dark energy surge in the subjects was to induce a sense of life-threatening danger. He made Kyumi and a clone of hers kill each other. Kyumi didn't resist, but when the clone stabbed her, she was forced to unleash the dark energy to protect herself. Mizami got the information he wanted and then had Kyumi taken to the fort in the harbor town where she was imprisoned. A kind employee tried to save her and told her that death wasn't the salvation Mizami had led her to believe. Unfortunately, the employee was soon discovered by Mizami and executed. Kyumi was sent back to prison, but after some time, she understood the meaning of the employee's words. She had to try to escape. So, just like in the beginning of the story, she managed to break free and now wanted to share what she had realized with her clones. However, Black Kyumi seemed quite stubborn, so Jiro merged with Kyumi to fight her. He quickly engaged in battle with Facade, and Kyumi noticed that Facade smelled very much like a monster. Meanwhile, the nobleman went to meet the king. He explained that he was planning to create warriors who didn't need companions. These warriors could replace the army to invade the territories of other subhuman tribes, forcing them to submit to the king. However, the king was concerned that the nobleman's experiment might fail and unite the subhuman tribes against the empire. The nobleman reassured the king not to worry too much. The tribe leader, at this point, coincidentally ran into Zen and told him that Jiro had begun to show some positive changes. Gyro was then consulting with Kumi. Kumi wanted to lure Black Kumi to the cliff so she could try to convince her, while Gyro would hold off Facade as long as possible. They split up, and Kumi quickly climbed onto the dog to leave, while Gyro continued fighting Facade. Zen realized that since Gyro and Kumi had split up, he needed to divide the group to help both of them. Gyro was struggling against Facade when he managed to strike at the afterimage Facade left behind. However, Gyro had already anticipated Facade's attack pattern and quickly pointed his spear behind him. Zen then appeared to fully restrain Facade, while Kumi approached Black Kumi and showed her memories, hoping to enlighten her. After seeing the memories, Black Kumi had an awakening, just as Kumi had hoped. However, just as Kumi was running back to inform the others about Black Kumi's progress, she suddenly triggered a mechanism from Mizami and started showing signs of an impending explosion. Kumi tried to stop the explosion, but Black Kumi could no longer halt it herself. Facade seized this opportunity to escape. Kumi then used her power to suppress the explosion, but the impact from the explosion on Black Kumi was irreversible, and she passed away. Kumi was heartbroken because she still couldn't save anyone. In the days that followed, Gyro stayed by Kumi's side to care for her. Kumi soon regained consciousness and met Rona, who informed her that she had switched shifts so Gyro could rest. Rona reassured her that everyone was safe, so Kumi didn't need to worry too much. After giving Kumi her medicine, Rona allowed her to rest. At that moment, Rona began to remember 3 years ago. When she was working as a field medic, Rona had witnessed many people being injured and many dying. However, among them, there was one pair of warrior and companion. The warrior requested Rona to examine and treat him, ignoring the fact that his companion was also injured, as he believed his companion could be replaced as many times as needed, so it didn't matter much. The young companion, it seemed, simply accepted her fate without resistance. After the battle had temporarily subsided, Rona discovered the body of the companion on the battlefield, while the warrior had disappeared. From that moment on, she began to despise warriors. However, now she realized that she could trust Gyro. Kumi later woke up and woke Gyro as well. He decided to bring something to Kumi, but he could only bring her plain rice, as Rona hadn't given her any proper food yet. Marin asked about the research facility from which Kumi had escaped. Although it was a delicate subject, Gyro felt that now was the time for Kumi to reveal everything. Kumi then shared with the group that she had been confined in a sealed area and would have been killed if she had tried to escape. But if she had stayed, she would have to fight for her life every day against a clone of herself. As for why they did this, Gyro had heard that the Empire was trying to create artificial companions and find a way for them to lose control under their commands. To do this, they brainwashed the subjects to believe that death was salvation. Through this, they were able to create human-shaped bombs who were not afraid of death and could wipe out an entire town without using any military force. Kumi now really wanted to save the clones like her in the research facility, though she was heartbroken that she hadn't been able to save even one person. Gyro didn't blame Kumi for escaping. Instead, he decided that from now on, he wouldn't run away either and would help Kumi save her friends. However, just then, the tribe leader arrived. He couldn't let Kumi and the group leave, as he believed she was very dangerous. At that moment, the Mia groups wearing cat and dog hats had gathered together, and it was revealed that the Mia in the cat hat and the Mia in the dog hat had swapped positions from the start to carry out a certain plan, one involving the ring and a person whom Mia referred to as the Master. Meanwhile, Rona had anticipated that they would be captured after the explosion caused by Black Kumi. She then helped the group escape, but the tribe leader blocked their path, refusing to let them leave. He couldn't allow someone as dangerous as Kumi to roam freely. Just then, Zen appeared, saying he would handle both sides and then go to Mizami to bury this inhumane research in the darkness. The reason for dealing with the Horned Tribe and Gyro's group was to ensure that there were no witnesses left. Kumi began to panic and started emitting dark energy, but Rona stepped in to stop Zen. She insisted that they wouldn't allow a war between the tribes and the Empire to break out. But if Zen killed them here, Mia would reveal everything to the world, ensuring that the group wouldn't be harmed. The tribe leader also realized that Mia wasn't present at the scene when everything occurred. Zen reluctantly agreed to let the group go unharmed. The tribe leader, Zen, and Gyro's group then gathered to discuss their plans. Although the tribe leader now agreed to let them leave, the rest of the village might not accept it. But if Gyro spoke up, perhaps the village would agree, as he had some connection with the tribe. The tribe leader would speak out to prevent other tribes from interfering. Once everything was settled, the group decided to depart the next day. Zen laughed, as it seemed Rona had already planned everything in advance. The next morning, Mia steered the ship back to pick up Gyro's group. The tribe leader pointed them toward the west, which would lead them to the Empire's territory. Meanwhile, Tsurugi had arrived at the dwelling of the forest tribe for some purpose. Kyumi, meanwhile, realized she was about to return to the place she had once escaped from. The group then stepped forward and revealed that they had prepared a gift for her. The group had come up with a new nickname for her. She would no longer be called Subject 22. From now on, she would be known as Kyumi in Bloom. She hesitated for a moment and then rushed to embrace Gyro, as she really liked her new nickname. At that time, the nobleman began to consider that Mizami would soon betray him, but he also had a replacement plan ready. So now he was just waiting to see who would act first, him or Mizami. Meanwhile, Gyro's group had found the research facility, but they were sure they wouldn't have enough time to persuade all the clones, so for now, they decided to lead them all out and drug them. Persuading them could wait. Gyro then confidently entered through the main door, causing alarms to ring quickly. Mizami was intrigued because Kyumi had returned. Mizami planned to send a clone into battle, giving it a drug to stimulate anger, but Facade intervened, wanting to face Gyro himself. Mizami reluctantly agreed, as long as Facade dealt with him quickly. Mizami had noticed that Facade was showing signs of needing to be eliminated. The soldiers were quickly wiped out by Gyro with a single strike, and the two team captains surrendered willingly, as they weren't getting paid extra to risk their lives. Upon entering, Gyro encountered Facade again. Gyro tried to remind Facade of his past memories, but he seemed to hear nothing. Facade then created afterimages to deceive Gyro, but Kyumi was able to point out Facade's exact location. Gyro then shattered a piece of rock on Facade's chest, causing Facade to momentarily regain some old memories. He fled, and Gyro's group regrouped. Facade later met with Mizami and demanded his memories back. However, Mizami decided it was time to dispose of Facade. He suddenly revealed a red eye and strangled Facade to death. Meanwhile, Gyro's group entered the clone holding area, but the clones had already been taken away, leaving only one clone waiting for them. Gyro quickly rushed to defeat the clone and instructed Rona to control it and take it outside once everything was finished. As they went deeper into the facility, they reached a room filled with clones. Gyro couldn't deal with them all, but then the room uploaded a command that caused all the clones to faint. Gyro assigned the task to the three others and, with Kyumi, proceeded deeper. The two eventually reached a hidden room where Mizami and the monster Gyro had encountered 5 years ago were. Mizami believed that he no longer needed Facade or the clones. What he needed now was Kyumi, as she had developed to the point where she could control her powers at will. Facade, who wasn't dead yet, had restored the stone on his chest to continue fighting. Mizami, now seeing himself as a being only second to gods, viewed humans and demi-humans as mere inferior insects. His eyes turned red, and soon after, a third eye appeared, and his body transformed into a monster similar to the gigantic one behind him. Rona's group had finished dealing with the clones of Kyumi and decided to leave the remaining ones for Gyro to handle. At this moment, Gyro was being pummeled by Mizami, unable to get up. Mizami then dragged Kyumi out of Gyro's body and demanded that she follow him if she wanted Gyro to live. He mocked the nickname the group had given to Kyumi, which infuriated her. she unexpectedly managed to control the giant monster behind her, which reached out and grabbed Mizami, swallowing him whole. Kyumi then fainted, and Gyro had to carry her out of the collapsing research facility. Upon exiting, the group was unexpectedly confronted by Tsurugi, who had brought the tribe leader of the forest people with her. Gyro explained that Mizami was dead, and now they could do whatever they wanted. After reviewing the situation, the forest tribe leader told them that there were two options for handling things. One was to eliminate Kyumi to bury the entire experiment in darkness, and the other was to seal all of Kyumi's powers and give her a new identity so she could live a normal life. However, the time for judgment was near. The forest people believed that when the world reached a certain point, gods would descend to decide everything, and the appearance of the red-eyed monsters proved that they were the vanguard of the gods. Suddenly, Kyumi encountered a problem and collapsed to the ground. After checking, Tsurugi called Gyro out to talk. She told Gyro that Kyumi's lifespan was very short because Mizami had forced her to carry too much power in her body. She had thought that sealing Kyumi's powers would help extend her life, but it seemed that Kyumi's lifespan had already shortened to the point where nothing could save her. At best, Kyumi could only live for another year. Hearing this, Gyro felt heartbroken and didn't know how to face Kyumi anymore. The next morning, Kyumi took the initiative to approach Gyro. She noticed that Gyro seemed to be hiding something from her, as he was acting awkwardly. She pretended to have overheard everything, hoping Gyro would confess. He had to tell her that she wouldn't live for much longer. However, Kyumi wasn't sad because she should have died in the research facility. But thanks to meeting Gyro, she had been able to live a happy life and make many new friends. Later, the group tried to head toward the forest people's settlement. When they arrived, Gyro noticed that each tribe had its own Mia. The group quickly reunited with the forest tribe leader, who mentioned that it had been 200 years since anyone from outside had visited. The area was peaceful and had never been attacked by monsters. The tribe leader had prepared a room for the group, and it was then that Gyro noticed Kyumi's ring was missing. She explained that Tsurugi had taken it. Tsurugi then brought the ring to show the tribe leader, who confirmed that the time for judgment was approaching. The group soon realized there was a festival taking place, and Kyumi wanted to join. Rona checked and found that Kyumi was in good health, so Gyro took her to the festival. While Kyumi was playing with the children, Rona reminded Gyro that 1 year of Kyumi's life might be equivalent to 10 years of his, but thanks to Kyumi, he had found joy once again. Afterward, Kyumi ran back to Gyro but suddenly felt unwell, so he took her to rest. That night, Kyumi woke up to hear that Gyro had gone somewhere with Tsurugi. Marin went looking for Gyro. Mia was also involved, and Rona took Kyumi to the tribe leader to discuss the sealing ritual. The tribe leader then led them down to a basement. He explained that the forest people lived peacefully due to their long lifespans, which led to low reproduction rates. To compensate for this, the tribe had created a room to make clones. This was originally intended to increase their population, but Mizami had stolen it for his own evil purposes. Despite this, the tribe leader now regarded Kyumi as a member of the tribe because she was born from there. Kyumi was happy to have found a place she could call home. Meanwhile, Tsurugi gave Gyro a communication device in case something bad happened. The next day, the forest people gathered to welcome Kyumi into the tribe. Since no one objected, the sealing ritual was about to take place. The tribe leader told Kyumi to touch the metal block, which would absorb the power in her body, and she was not to let go until all of her power was drained. Kyumi followed the instructions and began to emit dark energy. At the same time, a large number of red-eyed monsters arrived and began attacking the forest people's settlement. Gyro quickly received word from Tsurugi and rushed into battle. Kyumi wanted to help Gyro, but both the tribe leader and Rona insisted she stay and complete the ritual since they all wanted her to live longer. However, Kyumi didn't want to live while seeing everyone else die, so she chose to help Gyro. Rona respected her decision and allowed her to stop the ritual. Kyumi then ran off to find Gyro, thanking everyone for their kindness in wanting to help her. Meanwhile, Mia had gathered with the other Mias, and it was revealed that Mia was actually the one sent by the gods to prepare for the moment of judgment. Now that the gods were beginning to awaken, Mia would be responsible for preparing the final step. Zen had also arrived and realized it might be too late. Gyro then reunited with Kyumi. The two had to hide in a corner to regroup, and Gyro didn't understand why Kyumi had abandoned the ritual. She explained that she didn't want to leave everyone in danger, and then the two had an argument. However, Gyro had to accept Kyumi's wishes. The two then unexpectedly encountered Facade, who had lost his memory and mistook Gyro for Mizami, seeking revenge. Gyro took Kyumi's hand so they could merge and fight together. At that moment, all the tribes were desperately fighting the red-eyed monsters that kept appearing. Marin unexpectedly encountered Kyumi's aunt, who asked if Kyumi was okay. Seeing Marin's hesitation, she realized something was wrong with Kyumi. Meanwhile, Tsurugi noticed that the situation had stabilized, but she didn't think the moment of judgment was going to end like this. Suddenly, a huge monster appeared from outside, continuously spawning more red-eyed monsters. Although other areas were also being attacked, only this place was seeing the giant monster. Tsurugi called Gyro to ask him to deal with the giant, but he was still caught up with Facade. Facade, once again, used his high-speed movement to create afterimages but was attacked by a monster. In his anger, he charged at the monster's eye, but the monster didn't fall, so Gyro had to finish it off. However, during the fight, Facade took the opportunity to attack and knocked Gyro unconscious. Zen then appeared and decided to give Facade the memories he had been seeking. Kyumi's aunt also came to check on her health. Afterward, she woke Gyro and gave him and Kyumi a fruit to recover their energy. When a monster appeared, Kyumi's aunt blew it away with a powerful move. Gyro realized that Kyumi's aunt was also someone with divine power. She then told Gyro and Kyumi to deal with the giant monster while she and Zen handled things here. Rona, who was working in the medical department, was advised to rest by the doctors since she seemed exhausted, but she didn't want to rest while others were still fighting. Meanwhile, Marin was helping evacuate people and children, while also searching for Mia. Zen managed to break one of Facade's swords, but his own sword cracked in the process. The two exchanged powerful blows, and Zen's sword broke first. Facade quickly stabbed Zen in the back, but Zen used the broken sword to stab Facade in the chest, pushing him into the abyss. Although Zen knew that Facade wouldn't die, he hoped that Facade would at least create new memories. Marin eventually found Tsurugi to ask about Mia, but Tsurugi didn't know where she was. Monsters were pouring into the area, so Tsurugi asked Marin to take the ring back to Kyumi while she merged with her partner to deal with the monsters. The tribes were starting to lose ground against the monsters. From the harbor city to the Beastman's village and the Horned People's tribe, Gyro had been constantly killing monsters along the way, but their numbers were still overwhelming. He began to worry that Kyumi might not hold on until he could defeat the giant monster. Meanwhile, Marin was lucky to be picked up by Mia, who was driving a ship. Gyro realized that Kyumi was about to run out of strength, so he knew he had to defeat the giant monster in one strike. He then climbed onto a giant serpent and charged at the giant monster's eye. Although he struck the eye, it wasn't destroyed, and the monster grew more eyes. Gyro was completely exhausted, and Kyumi was about to activate the curse to destroy everything. Gyro stopped her, and at that moment, Marin and Mia arrived. Mia allowed Marin to take control of the ship for a while and then teleported to where Gyro and Kyumi were. Mia teleported them both to another space and transformed, growing larger. She told Gyro that to defeat the monster, he would need to use the true power of the engagement ring. Mia gave the ring to Kyumi and instructed her to pour all her emotions into it to unlock its full power. Afterward, Mia returned Gyro to the real world. Kyumi transformed into a goddess-like form and held a ring, which she used to strike down all the monsters in a vast area. The giant monster, however, still stood firm. It began to retaliate, But Kumi now had the ability to defend against its attacks. She then focused all her energy into one final strike. This strike squeezed the giant monster tightly, compressing it to its absolute limit before causing it to explode. With the giant monster destroyed, the monsters throughout the empire suddenly stopped moving. Kumi returned to her normal state, and Gyro was unexpectedly separated from her body. Marin rushed over to reunite with everyone, still in shock upon seeing Mia, who had unexpectedly transformed into a grown-up sister. But just as everything seemed to be coming to an end, a strange object resembling a ship appeared in the sky. This marked the true moment of judgment, and with that, the film concluded. Currently, there is no sequel, so we cannot know what will happen in the next battle. But for now, we must say goodbye to everyone.